An Untroubled Road by Neon Sangetsu, Chapter 25. Wake the Dragon. Yes, a dragon, Neil. An honest-to-goodness dragon. Damn thing was sleeping in a volcano. Huh, what's that? What did we do? I didn't do shit. I wasn't fighting a dragon. The boss, well, you can't believe what happened you won't believe what happened next. Torchwick, future. Wake the dragon. Everyone scattered. What else could they do? Wasn't every day a dragon popped out of a mountain, you know? Nor was said dragon the only thing they had to concern themselves with. Molten rock rained down from the still erupted volcano, creating an entirely different sort of haze, crushing cultists, pelting buildings, even spraying into the sea. Thankfully, it was the stadium directly below the mountain that took the brunt of the disaster. And Colgrim's insanity saved them on that front, in emptying the arena of all but those who were loyal to him, and driving away those who weren't. He had unwittingly spared most of the island from danger. Most, not all. Shadow Clones truly proved something of a blessing in that regard. He disliked the idea of revealing his gifts to the public, but with hellfire literally raining down on their heads, he didn't have much choice. Colgrim's bombs were effectively neutralized now, with no reason to hold himself back. It was a small matter to swarm the streets of Menagerie and evacuate any remaining civilians to a safe distance. Kurma rumbled, a laugh as he swept a daughter into her mother's arms. Someone's going to be popular once this is over. He wasn't looking forward to that. Everyone had only just got over his stunt in Atlas. For better or worse, the eyes of the world would be on him again after this. As if they weren't already. Everyone started watching you the moment you met Willow. Fair. It was too much to hope they wouldn't see the spectacle that followed. As much as he might dislike it, Colgrim had forced his hand in that regard. No point in crying over spilled milk now. That's no ordinary dragon. We sure that thing's not a Grim? He came down to himself just in time to hear Summer's question. He wasn't sure where the rest of Team Stark had gone, probably wrapped up in the mad melee back in the arena with Tyrion and the Beldanas. He was sure the former would keep the kids safe, at least. A glacier absolutely burst behind him, raining down bloody ice. Yeah, not going near that. Willow was taking her anger out on the cultists, rightfully so. Ain't black and white, ain't a Grim. Raven touched a hand to Omen's hilt. He didn't much like the glint in her eyes, or the fact that she'd let it happen. We gonna kill it anyways, might make a good trophy. Naruto wasn't sure they should. It sounded angry, and it was, but the emotions he felt from it weren't those of some malevolent beast, but a startled animal lashing out. Poor thing hadn't been doing anything until someone shot it. They had no idea how long the poor beast had even been sealed in there. Decades, centuries, longer still. To just kill it simply because it was in the way, because it was the easier thing to do. I'd be grumpy too if someone woke me up after a long nap like that. No. Summer blocked. Huh? Raven rolled over her eyes. Oh boy, here he goes. I don't know. It seems kind of sentient. He smacked her fist into his palm. Huh? That's all the things. I'm gonna talk to it. She must have seen the look in his eyes because she tipped back Crow's hip flask. When had she gotten it off of him and took a long drink to fortify herself? You're gonna do something stupid, aren't you? He beamed. Remarkably. Willow! Another tower of eyes bloomed back in the arena. What? Gonna need you in 5 minutes? He didn't wait to hear her response before pivoting. And one last thing, Raven. Huh? She turned a red eye on him. What? Thunk! Her head snapped to the side, bearing a throbbing red handprint on her cheek. Never! He hissed, lowering his metal hand. Endanger civilians like that again? I don't care how bloodthirsty you are, or how badly you want a good fight. You want a brawl? You fight me. You don't let some psycho blow a magical horn for shits and giggles. If I see you pull a stunt like that again, I'll tear stripes out of your hide. She turned away from him with a huff. Fine, sure, I get it. You're pissed. I'm sorry. No, she wasn't. Naruto's temper sparked, and he stepped to her with a scowl. Can't hear you. He pinched her. He pinched her still stinging cheeks. Louder. Ow! All right. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. He grabbed her other cheek and yanked. Louder. I'm sorry. She slurred. See that you are. He let her go and turned to face the dragon, even now extracting itself from the mountain. This conversation is far from over. Wait. Summer sputtered, thrusting herself between them. You are not taming a dragon. No, absolutely not. Even you can't. Are you even listening? Come back here. No dice. He was already walking. Look after the kids. Oi, I ain't a babysitter. Naruto waved over his shoulder. I'll pay you in cookies. Why, you... He didn't pause to listen to her, not with his objective in sight. He hurled headlong at the beast. What kind of weakness did the dragon have? Anyway, he'd never fought a real one before, and this was certainly a beast apart from a normal wyvern. Blasted thing was glowing now. One could argue that its wings were the greatest threat. If it got free of the mountain, it might well fly off to terrorize Mistral's mainland. He'd have to ground it here, but how? Well, guess it's trial and error then. He skirted a stray blast of flame and caught a stray bit of broken building as he blitzed upward. His fingers bit down into the stone, dragging it after him. Soiled and heavy enough for his purpose, it would serve. The dragon didn't see him coming. How could it? Damn thing was too big for its own good. A gleaming golden dot meant no more to it than any would a human. No, it definitely didn't see him coming, but it certainly felt the boulder smash against its snout. It rounded on him with an outraged shriek, aware of his presence at last. That's right. His grin turned feral. Eyes on me. A shout echoed behind him, almost sounded like summer. Are you insane? Probably. May I? Happily, he clapped his hands together as he ran, palm to palm, finger to finger. You hold back the dragon? What are you gonna do? Naruto hummed a little to himself. What I do best? Improvise. He hadn't let Kurama out since that disaster at the glass unicorn back in Atlas, using him for a brief instant to hold up a crumbling building. Folks had seen him to be sure, but not many. Now there was still building to hide him, no distractions to draw the eye. No fire to see. His old friend roared into existence around him, looming large in all his golden glory. Oh! Gira yelped somewhere below him, and Kali proved far more vocal. What in oblivion is that? Validation! Tyrion howled answered her, and had him cringing in equal measure. My lord reveals himself at last! Right. The Belladonnas had never seen this before, had they? Raven flung up her arms. That's cheating! Shinobis don't care. The dragon certainly didn't. It opened its maw and screamed. Get some tank in this! Naruto shielded his face with an arm. Kurama mimicked the action. The flames were certainly bright, powerful to be sure, but at the end of the day, it was only that. Power, raw, unfocused. It didn't have the wherewithal to focus on him fully, nor did it think to focus its heat into a tight cone of flame to scorch him. And he had been burned by far worse than this. He barreled through. Was it his imagination, or did the dragon look surprised just now? Kurama hit a moment later, slammed into the dragon with such force that he accidentally ripped the beast from Menadri's mountain, and down they went, tumbling across the beach and into the ocean. For two titans such as these, the water near the isle may as well have been a shallow pond. Calling it a contest would have been an insult. There was never any doubt as to the outcome. There never had been. However large and powerful it might be, the dragon had only just awoken from a long slumber, or hatching, he wasn't sure. Had the mountain been its egg? If so, it might even be a newborn. It was certainly acting like one. No strategy, no tactics, only mindless feral rage. Weren't dragons supposed to be smart? This one certainly wasn't. You gonna stop? He snarled at it. Or do I gotta calm you down the hard way? The worm screamed fire in his face again. I know it hurts, Naruto smiled, uncaring as the heart singed his whiskered visage. Scream all you like. I'll take all that anger and blow it away. His wrist flicked out. A funnel opened in his wrist. The fire sizzled out, drawn inward, leaving his false limb flowing a bright, cheery red. He thrust his arm forward, and quite suddenly, the dragon found itself face to face with its own flames. They didn't so much singe as they did startle the beast, and its long neck reared back in anger. His earpiece squawked with Arthur's outraged voice a heartbeat later. I didn't think you'd use that absurd dragon fire. Are you trying to melt your arm? A blonde rose. It worked, didn't it? Yes, well. His wrist clicked again, and a web of heavy metal wire burst forth to ensnare snaring the beast's maw. Direct hit. It made an outraged noise and clawed its way an instant later, but he had expected as much. It had bought him a moment of time, but yet it was wary of him and distracted by its grapple with Kurama. That was all he needed. Willow whistled below the beast's bulks. Right on time. Over here! With a shuddering hiss, the dragon glowered down at her, its jaw parted, ready to unleash hell. The Winter Maiden tilted back and snapped her fingers. Bad dragon! A geyser of blue eyes burst forth to entrap the dragon's front feet. It didn't stop there and shot up its limb, shooting it where it stood. The beast squealed its displeasure and lashed out like an angry child, beating its gray wings for all it was worth. Wind kicked up and storm swept forth. Or rather, it tried. A massive golden fist slammed down on the back of the beast's head, and grabbed its long neck, and forced the worm down. Another squawk of outrage filled the air, but this time it wasn't given a chance to rally. A firm tails of light wrapped around its great bulk and rustled it into stillness, forcing its hind legs to buckle. Soon enough, the rest followed. The instant it sought to rise, Kurma snarled at it. Sit! Remarkably, the dragon sat. Good girl. Previous, all of you, cease! The surviving cultists did just that. A few of them even knelt and screamed his praises. Please tell me I didn't just start my own cult. Salutations! It is so sensational to finally meet you all. Aw, Crow's got himself a girlfriend. I do not. And tell it to the bunny, bird boy. Naruto, stop. This isn't you. This isn't you. This isn't who you want to be. They need to face justice. Rationally, yes, but he wasn't feeling very rational right now. They came from a family. This is justice. He squeezed their neck. Crack. The door creaked open. Summer poked her head through. Can we talk? I do not take sass from insects. Insect? I'm the strongest hunter in the generation. A beetle is still an instinct no matter how loud it might scream. Ruby Rose, put the cookie down. Never! What's gotten into you, Winter? She wouldn't look at him. She mustn't. She refused. I heard what you said to Mother. Father arched an eyebrow at her, and in the absence of his words, child though she was, she found the strength to continue. You think I'm weak because I'm not like you and Mother, like Cinder and Sienna, or even Roman? She stomped a foot and looked down, unwilling to meet his eyes. I know I was never what you wanted, but I thought after all this time, maybe things were different. His stoic gaze drilled into her. When did you get the impression I didn't want you? You don't know everything, kiddo. No, she sniffled, but at least now I know the truth. The truth, He thumbed his chin. All right. A quick shove pushed his chair out from behind his desk. You want the truth? Come here. A metal hand patted his knee. I wanted to wait another 3 years, but I suppose now is as good a time as any. Her legs betrayed her, and she found herself climbing into his lap. At the end of the day, he was still her father, and she was only 5. She tilted her head up to get a better look at him. As such, she saw the moment his sapphire eyes snapped into scarlet. Winter gasped despite her best efforts. What did you do? Is that a semblance or... Nope. I'm a jerky girl. She watched the golden light dance across his face as he spoke, burning bright. From another world, far from here. When I first met your mother, I chose to be who I am now, to be more than a fighter, but a leader as well. But the truth is, I'm far from perfect. He held up his false arm for her to see. I killed my best friend. It wasn't something I wanted to do. That's how I got this arm. Even after that, I destroyed many who were deserving, and many who were not. That still doesn't explain why you think I'm weak. You think you're weak, Winter. No. He shook his head, settling his pale hairs. Wayne. You're strong. The only other person on this planet with chakra besides me. Hell, you're probably going to be even stronger than me once you grow up, which is why you must be better. I didn't want to tell you any of this until you were ready. Why not tell me all this before? Because it could go to your head. Because strength without experience can create a lifetime of tragedy if you're not careful. I also wanted you to have a normal childhood. She scoffed at him. How is anything about my life even remotely normal? He granted her a small smile. Fair enough. End of chapter 25. An Untraveled Road by Neon Sangetsu, chapter 26. Welcome to the world. What? Is this the end? No, Neil. You think things were sorted on Menagerie, but they weren't. Nope, not at all. Not by a long shot. Torchwick, future. Welcome to the world. Good dragon. Nice girl. She certainly was. The massive beast trilled once and lowered her head to the beach with a pleased purr, humming contently now as Naruto scratched her chin. Almost made him think of a kitten, a gigantic flying fire-breathing cat that had come screaming out of a mountain for fire and blood, sure, but a cat nonetheless. Her head was bigger than him, for crying out loud. Hard to believe they'd been fighting only a few hours ago. You're just a big softy, ain't you? He cooed at her. You didn't mean to hurt anyone. The dragon laid her head down on the sand and folded her wings down with a low rumble. Yep, definitely purring. It wasn't even trying to fight him anymore. He'd utterly cowed it into submission. He wasn't entirely sure if that was a good thing or not. It also begs the question, now that he'd beaten her, what the hell was he going to do with her? On a whim, he thrust an open hand at the eldritch beast paw. The dragon instantly slapped a giant claw into his palm. Good girl. He plucked a particularly large fish, more a shark really, from the basket at his feet and tossed it her way. The dragon snapped it up instantly, giant jaws closing around his fist, around the fish, with such force that she bit its tail clean off and let it flop at her feet. From there, she craned her neck to give him a sidelong glance. Although she lacked the capacity of speech, the gesture spoke volumes. Still hungry, huh? His lips twitched ever so slightly when she made a mewling noise, practically pleading with him. She was. All right, one more. Roll over. Remarkably, the dragon did just that, righting itself with a startled speed for a creature so large, and opened her mouth. Well done. He opened the entire basket into Andraste's waiting jaws. Here you go. You've earned this. He tried to ignore the awful crack that followed as her powerful jaws crunched down on today's catch. Poor fish, they never stood a chance. Not yet satisfied, the dragon's tail began to wag, threshing out great amounts of sand from the beach. Within moments, she kicked up a localized sandstorm. Naruto held up a hand to ward it away. Hey, he coughed as gritty grains prepared his face. Stop that! No more natural disasters! The giant dragonling complied at once. Huh, Naruto lowered his limbs. Didn't think I could actually train a dragon. Now what are we going to do with you? Things had not quite settled down on Menagerie in the last day, but they were calmer once he'd bested their so-called Andraste. The surviving cultists had given up soon thereafter. Kerma's appearance had rattled them, to be sure, but breaking their dragon likewise broke them. A few of them even knelt and screamed his praises, much to his chagrin. He could already feel a migraine coming on just thinking of it. Tyrion was bad enough, but at least he had his uses. This lot, please tell me I didn't just start my own cult. Kerma grinned. All right, I won't. Still, we're going to need more fish, a familiar voice interjected breathlessly. Look, I brought more fish. Andraste caught the scent of it and raised her head at once. Naruto joined her and did just that, craning his neck back. Sure enough, he saw Cinder stealing his way from the shallows, dragging 2 baskets of fish behind her, one to each hand. He could respect her sheer dedication, if nothing else. Nearly everyone else was off preparing for tonight's festivities, cleaning up the aisle or bearing that, actively hunting down the stragglers of Cauldron's cult. Tim Stark had taken to that task with relish. He pitied the survivors, but objectively he could see why they'd insisted on the task. Better for them to bring them in, as they had Colgrim, and besides, it would be good practice for the kids. Salutations! It's so sensational to finally meet you all. Penny, wait, lungs! You gotta let him breathe. Roman groaned in her grasp. Why me? Naruto smiled at the fond memory. Alma and by definition the newly born Penny were little darlings that needed protection, but likewise they also needed real life experience. Hopefully this would nudge them in the right direction. If Watts and Pietro could play nice, so could they. Right? Maybe. Hopefully. If it were him, he might just slaughter the surviving cultist and be done with it. He was fresh out of mercy for these fools. Not so little Cinder. She wanted to be here with him, or more amply, with the dragon. His brave, fearless child. She plucked a fish from one of the baskets, a burnt tuna by the look of it, and walked right up to the dragon without so much as an iota of fear in her heart. Andraste lopped to her feet, shaking the earth. Naruto sighed. Easy now. Make sure you don't lose up. Dear Worm reached out and, with startling gentleness, nimbly plucked the fish from Cinder's fingers as one might a small child. Cinder hummed her appreciation and planted a fist on her hip. Good girl. Lay down, would you kindly? Andraste did just that. Another fish was offered and happily received. Cinder opened her mouth. No, Naruto cut her off at the pass. We can't keep her. His foster daughter adopted a deliciously mulish look. I wasn't going to suggest that, father. Oh ho, father. She waned to be formal like that. She too could play that game. Then what were you going to say? A daughter of mine. She looked away with a huff. Never mind. Gotcha. He could have challenged her further, but chose not to. A part of him was curious to see what length she'd go to convince him. Still, she ventured on, seeking another avenue of attack. Doesn't she at least deserve a name? Pretty sure she already has one. He quirked a blonde brow at their unlikely pet. Andraste, right? That's what they called you? The dragon snorted derisively, the act of which blasted their hair back. Cinder smirked. I don't think she likes that one. Yeah, no kidding. She may be a newborn, but she has power. His daughter stroked the beast's face with both hands and placed her head against its snout, drawing a high-pitched trill from her. A proper name is the least we owe such a gorgeous beast. It nosed closer, rubbing against her, and a rare giggle fled from her lips. Huh! She closed her eyes and watched the dragons hum with one of her own. His brave, fearless little girl. You'd like that, wouldn't you? No normal name for you. Someone of your stature deserves something grand indeed. Naruto held his tongue and let her ponder it. Golden eyes snapped open. Cyrax. The word rolled out of her tongue. The dragon perked up. Cyrax, Cinder repeated, drawing the word out for her to hear. That will be your name now. Do you understand? The dragon tilted her head, considering her with a giant slitted iris, leaned forward now, and meep! Cinder squeaked as the great beast lunged forward and licked her in its long tongue, all but slaughtered her in drool. She warded off another attempt with a sputter, only to falter and hold on for dear life as the resident dragon thrust its snout into her face and nearly knocked her down. Curious choice. Why'd you get that name? Read it in the book, see? Even soaked as she was, Cinder's smile radiated childish pride. She likes it. Stop, he said again. I know what you're thinking. Her face paled. No, you don't. Yes, I do. And he did. She said the words just a little too quickly there. We can't bring him to Atlas. We can't bring her to Atlas. Where would we even keep her? We have resources. We can build her an enclosure. And then what? He hated to rain on her parade. Really, he did. But someone had to be the realistic here. Dragons hate the cold, Cinder. Would you keep her in a cage? There are mountains in Atlas, caves. Surely we could find a place for her. What would she eat? Another hole in her argument. We don't even know what she is, let alone where she comes from. We can't leave her here. She rallied at him. The people menagerie fear her. She'll be killed within a week. Or she'll kill them. Cinder continued with implacable patience. You know how she takes to being attacked. She does have a point, leaving it to Kurama to torment him. Our scaly friend here could wipe out the entire island if she wanted. Likewise, killing her himself wasn't an option. This was an innocent creature that had been slumbering in a volcano for, well, forever. He had it asked to be awoken, let alone unleashed upon the world. Killing it solely for the sake of convenience just smacked of casual cruelty. He liked to think he hadn't fallen that far yet. However much he might have hardened his heart to battle, he wasn't about to butcher something to make a point. Cyrax trilled a wordless question. Please, 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 Papa. Cinder saw his weakness and pounced now, desperately clasped both hands before her face, golden maiden fire flashing from her eyes. I'll never ask for anything again, I swear. Right, had to deal with that now, too. They didn't know which maiden she was, but between spring, summer, and fall, he could hazard a guess as to which season she embodied. Only one resonated with dragons. Fire had ever been Cinder's element after all, even with her semblance. No, now wasn't the time to think of that. They could focus on their training once they had the journey back to Atlas. For now, he palmed his face. I can't believe I'm even considering this. Cinder didn't move. She didn't even breathe. For fear of tipping his decision the other way, he could still sense her anticipation. She never wanted something so badly as she did in this moment. Taking in a dragon would be a massive undertaking, yet they did have the resources for it, did they not? Ironwood would no doubt have questions, as would others. And yet, she will be your responsibility. Yes! Cinder slammed into him and latched onto his waist, for once acting her age. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm not done. He patted her head. I expect you and Sienna to take care of her. Roman too. This is a big responsibility, Cinder. Don't go offloading your work onto Penny and Alma, you hear? Roman? A quizzical look flashed across her face, followed by comprehension. He's coming back to Atlas with us, isn't he? Naruto granted her a rueful grin. He is. He just doesn't realize it yet. Cinder grin was euphoric. Do you hear that, girl? She turned and stroked Cyrax's long neck. You're coming with us. I'm going to write you something. Now there was a terrifying image. When the hell did you get that? When the hell did you get this stubborn? We are Schnee. It falls to us to lead, to be better, like you said. He chuckled and patted her head, musing her hair. You sound just like your mother. Cinder preened and hugged him again, burying her face into his hip. I learned from the best. Ironwood wasn't looking forward to this. He knew it needed to be done, just as the call had to be made. Staring at the screen only made his nerves worse. In the end, he gave in and pressed the button. And credit where it was due, his benefactor picked up quickly. Hello, James. The face that stared back at him within the monitor seemed grainy, made blurry by distance and poor reception, yet the audio came through crystal clear. To what do I owe this sudden call? Ospen. No point beating around the bush then. Hazel has escaped. James watched the words hit Ospen like an avalanche. Even through a voice call, James could read him He read him well as ever. He watched his face fall, his shoulders droop, an almost invincible weight of bull bowing his back, and he knew he had nothing to do with this. It had seemed a silly suspicion at the time, yet one could never be too sure. Nevertheless, he was glad to be rid of it now. How did this happen? He received a visitor shortly after Uzumaki left for Menagerie. The Grimm descended shortly thereafter. Neither were found. This is unfortunate. Othman looked to his mug, raised it, then seemed to think better for a moment. Evidently, he withdrew a silver flask from beneath his desk and abandoned it into the cup. Only then did he drink, and he did so deeply. He is an implacable adversary. Salem will doubtlessly make good use of him. We do not have proof it was her. His fellow headmaster heaved a sigh. Who else would have the resources or the gall to execute him in broad daylight? James clapped a hand to his wrist. He won't get far. This is my hope. Huh. Ospen leaned back in his chair. Anything else to report? And James considered telling him he really did. Cinder Schnee was a maiden. He'd seen the footage he sent his way by Pietro and summarily deleted it. Hadn't been any other kingdom, such wouldn't have been possible. Fortunately, or unfortunately, as some might say, Menagerie wasn't a kingdom. They thankfully lacked a CCT tower. That was the sole reason this fiasco wasn't aired across the world. Word would get out sooner or later, but for now, did he dare speak up? Ospen was a good man, but by his own admission, he'd made many mistakes. Too many. If he knew Uzumaki had another maiden in his family, he'd want them under his thumb. That would be a disaster, and not for the reasons one might think. Naruto would fight tooth and nail to protect those he loved, and that fiery little girl was right there near the top. They didn't even know which maiden she'd inherited. Winter was quite obliviously accounted for, and likewise Willow Schnee was grown woman and quite untouchable due in no small part to her connections. But an impressionable child was another matter. He didn't think Ospen would go so far as to kidnap a child, but one could never be sure. Nothing at the time. He loathed himself for the lie, even as he said it. How fair is Vale? He asked instead. Well, a careful worn smile was his answer. The current Fall Maiden is getting a bit on in age and looking to train up a successor. She's had no luck yet. Fall was still secure then. James stored that tidbit away for later. Willow was the winter maiden, which only left spring and summer in the wind. Should he ask Leonardo? No, best to keep his cards close to his chest. Leo was not the man he'd once been. He had his doubts. Personally, he thought she might be Summer. The irony of the name wasn't lost on him. She'd shown an alarming affinity for fire. I'll leave you to it then. He feigned a smile he didn't feel. Do keep me posted. Rest assured, I will. Farewell, James. With a soft click, the screen went black, leaving Ironwood to slump at his desk. Should Ospen learn of Cinder, he would want to keep her close, or worse. In Beacon, Naruto would never stand for that. No, he reaffirmed his decision. He would hold his tongue for now. His old friend might be hurt by such revelation, but he would understand in time. Silence, as they say, was golden. Surely this was for the best. He would understand. Night had fallen on Menagerie. Summer reveled in it. The merrymaking, the madness, the simple release from the chaos of a long day. As far as the people of Menagerie were concerned, between those cultists and that dragon, they'd survived the apocalypse. Only naturally that they celebrate, really. She wasn't one to partake, of course. No, no, no. She lived vicariously through others. Yep, better to nurse one drink and stay sober than drink herself into oblivion. Drinking and partying up aplenty in his crow's case, which his efforts against the cultists hadn't gone unnoticed, not by that fondest girl Naruto dropped in his lap, and certainly not by Tyrion. By Taiyang, Raven was even more merciless by comparison. Would you look at that? My baby brother's got himself a girlfriend. She's gonna pop your cherry. Quit it, Ray. He struggled against the arm slung around his shoulders to no avail. It ain't like that. Tell it to the bunny, bird boy. She keeps making eyes at you. She's got a point there, but not you too, Ty. As team leader, Summer knew she should help Crow. Should, but wouldn't. As far as she was concerned, this was revenge for all the times he teased her. She took another sip of her beverage, some fruity cocktail Kali had recommended her, and restrained a giggle as the younger Bronwyn found himself dragged towards a certain bunny. Huh, she giggled a little. Turnabout's fair play, bird brain. She was still watching him squirm when a finger tapped her shoulder. May I have a word? Sure, she repeated thoughtfully. What's up? All the blood drained from her. Willow had cornered her at last. Hello, Summer. Drink in hand, water thankfully. The Winter Maiden smiled back at her. In hindsight, Summer knew she would have caught on eventually, just as she knew she couldn't avoid her forever. She liked to think she'd done a decent job of it, dodging the question all this time. And really, Willow looked good, positively glowing, really. I'd like you and yours to keep quiet about what you saw here today. Me being intensely, about what? You know perfectly well what. The maiden in exchange. She paused for a moment, considering something. Naruto, you care for him, don't you? I've seen you skulking about. Who, me? Summer's voice rose in a nervous squeak. No, no, no. Oh gods, her face was so warm right now. You got it all wrong. All right, more like, I'll just be going. An ice wall sprang up to bar her path. Even as she turned to flee, she smacked right into it. A hand took her by the shoulder and spun her around. Pivoting, she found Willow smiling softly. Odd. Wasn't she angry? Willow leaned in until her forehead touched hers. Let's talk about these feelings of yours. It was time to leave. Roman knew it was coming when the dawn arrived. Knew his happy little dream couldn't last forever. Nothing good ever did. It was a fact of life. No matter how hard you tried to cling onto anything, it slipped through your fingers sooner or later. But he wished it wasn't so soon. He tugged at his hat as they reached the landing strip. So, I guess this is goodbye, huh? What are you talking about? Naruto quirked a pale eyebrow at him and jerked a thumb over his shoulder to where their vessel waited. Get in. Roman's brain fizzled. Come again? You, ship, now. Naruto spoke each word flatly, but there could be no hiding his smile. Unless you'd rather ride Cinder's dragon. She's keeping that thing. Most girls want a pony. Cinder isn't most girls. He was stalling, he knew, trying to make sense of it all. It was a strange thing to be wanted. He'd almost forgotten what it felt like. Well, if I'm staying in that case, Rowan flung himself at Raven's feet. Train me! Her jaws clicked open. Huh? Why me? Because you're a certified badass. Naruto howled with laughter. Enjoy your new apprentice. She glared bloody red daggers at him. I will end you. Promises, promises. Tyrion raised a hand. Can I have an apprentice too, my lord? Sure, you can help me train Sienna. The poor girl whimpered. Why me? Time waits for no one, neither man, nor woman, nor child. She marched on silently, steadily, relentlessly, until one day she bears new life. Welcome to the world. On a cold winter night, much like her namesake, Winter came into the world. Welcome to the world, Winter. She was born with glowing blue eyes and chakra. Naruto cooed at her, grinning as she giggled up at him from Willow's arms. Well, aren't you special? How little he knew her birth would change everything. Previews. My queen, an empire toppled by its enemies can rise again. A finger tapped the table, further emphasizing his point. But one which crumbles from within. That's dead forever. Dark red eyes considered him for a long moment. What do you propose, Merlot? That we destroy the Schnee from within? We still haven't tracked down that semblance booster yet. Evidently it's cropped up in Mistral now. Lovely. You have no idea what you've unleashed. There are things far worse than that. Ruby Rose, put that cookie down. Never. I do not take sass from insects. Insect? I'm the strongest huntsman in a generation. A beetle is still an insect, no matter how loud it might scream. What's gotten into you, Winter? She wouldn't look at him. She mustn't. She refused. I heard what you said to Mother. Father arched an eyebrow at her, and in the absence of his words, child though she was, she found the strength to continue. You think I'm weak because I'm not like you and Mother? Like Cinder and Sienna, or even Roman? She stomped a foot and looked down, unwilling to meet his eyes. I know I was never what you wanted, but I thought after all this time, maybe things were different. His stoic gaze drilled into her. When did you get the impression I didn't want you? You don't know everything, kiddo. No, she sniffled, but at least now I know the truth. The truth, huh? He thumbed his chin. All right. A quick shove to push his chair out from behind his desk. You want the truth? Come here. A metal hand patted his knee. I'd wanted to wait another 3 years, but I suppose now as good a time as any. Her legs betrayed her, and she found herself climbing into his lap. At the end of the day, he was still her father, and she was only 5. She tilted her head up to get a better look at him. As such, she saw the moment his sapphire eyes snapped into scarlet. Winter gasped despite her best efforts. What did you do? Is that your semblance, or... Nope. I'm a jerky girl. She watched the golden light dance across his face as he spoke, burning bright. From another world, far from here. When I first met your mother, I chose to be who I am now, to be more than a fighter, but a leader as well. But the truth is, I'm far from perfect. He held up his false arm for her to see. I killed my best friend. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but that's how I got this arm. Even after all that, I destroyed many who were deserving, and many who were not. That still doesn't explain why you think I'm weak. You think you're weak, Winter? No. He shook his head, steadily, his pale hair swaying. You're strong, the only other person on this planet with chakra besides me. Hell, you're probably going to be even stronger than me once you've grown up, which is why you must be better. I didn't want to tell you any of this until you were ready. Why not tell me all this before? Because it could go to your head. Because strength without experience can create a lifetime of tragedy if you're not ready. If you're not careful. I also wanted you to have a normal childhood. She scowled at him. How is anything about my life even remotely normal? He granted her a small smile. Fair enough. Cinder wasn't cut out to be a big sister. Truly, she felt she wasn't. She'd been born broken. She only knew how to fight and kill. That wasn't why she seldom spoke, why she shunned others. It was precisely why she was hesitating now as the mouths of a newborn infant filled the hospital room. Oh, stop that. Come here and hold your baby sister. Weiss won't bite. Naruto, stop. This isn't you. This isn't who you want to be. They need to face justice. Rationally, yes, but he wasn't feeling very rational right now. They came for my family. This is justice. He squeezed their neck harder. Crack. End of chapter 26.